I got to talk to you about some recruiting. So on Monday, Bud Elliott releases his most popular feature of the year on 247sports.com. It's the blue chip ratio. And I planned to talk about it Thursday, then Arizona State made things go haywire. So we pushed it to Sunday. That's the good thing about the blue chip ratio. It doesn't change a whole lot once you release it. What I like about the blue chip ratio is it dispels the notion of a Cinderella in college football. A lot of you want to expand the playoff because you want to give a shot to a Cinderella. Cinderellas don't win national titles in this sport. They could win a playoff game. Notice the difference. We're not talking about teams capable of making the playoff, 4 teams or 12 teams. Talking about teams capable of actually winning a national championship. There are no Cinderellas in college football. We'll define that in a second. College basketball does not equal college football. It's apples to bowling balls. No comparison. So Bud releases this thing. Very simple premise. It's brilliant in its simplicity. You establish what is the minimum recruiting level you have to be at over a 4-year period to win a national championship. So you look across the span of history and you set your parameters and you mine the data and you find what is that baseline. And it turns out that in order to win a national championship throughout the entire history of whatever the metrics are that have been available, your roster, in the recruiting era, let's say, your roster has to have a higher percentage of 4- and 5-star talent than it does 3-star talent and less for 4 consecutive years up until the point that you take the measurement. So the 2021, 20, 19, and 18 classes really is what we're looking at here. You just have to have signed more 4- and 5-star talent than 2- and 3-star talent. Now, here's what I want to do. Okay, I know you got a lot of questions, so I want to reveal the list, and then we'll come back to it. So here is the list. Now, you may have been expecting 4 teams, 8 teams. There are 16 teams here. Now, this list, let's provide some context. In and of itself, the list doesn't mean anything. Being on this list does not guarantee you a single win. Not being on the list, history says, guarantees that you will not win a national title this year. Bama has the highest blue chip ratio in the history of the BCR this year, 84%. A couple of takeaways here. I saw that Florida sits right there at number 8. That is good, man. That's good for Dan Mullen because the perception is they don't recruit well. No, they recruit very well. I always try and provide this backdrop. When we're talking Florida, when we question their recruiting, we're only questioning it against the top 1% of the sport because they recruit better than like 97 or 98% of the sport. I know I got a little loose with the math there. Florida has the 8th highest blue chip ratio in America right now. And this is Dan Mullen's team. He's not a first-year coach. He's been there a while. They're sitting there, Florida, dead even with Texas, Oklahoma, and LSU, so I really guess it's a tie for 5th. Florida stands out, okay? Another thing that stands out is this explains the pressure on Ed Orgeron because they are sitting there, again, tied for the 5th highest blue chip ratio, which means you've got the adequate talent there, more than adequate, to win a championship. I think Oklahoma stands out, also tied for 5th. I'm excited to see the next time they're on the field in a playoff situation or what you may call a meaningful bowl game. I'm excited to see them against an SEC team again. I wish I could put them on the field with Georgia again this year, or put them on the field with LSU again this year, or put them on the field with Alabama again this year. You may predict the same outcome, but if you get it, the team that ends up beating them handedly will have done it against a much better Oklahoma roster top to bottom than they faced in 2019 or 2018 or whenever that was before that. And also look at Oregon, just surge. Oregon is now sitting there at 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th place, a tie for 12th. And that is the only team other than USC that's out on the West Coast or anywhere close to the West Coast that's on this list. And Oregon does not have the benefit of being parked in Southern California. And they have surged. The Oregon Ducks have surged, and they will not go anywhere but up on this list. So an important note here. Again, being on the list doesn't guarantee you anything, but it is a parameter. It's a prerequisite. If you're not on the list, then it does mean something. It means history says you will not win a national championship this year. Now, I know the takeaways, so I'm going to save you some time. I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to save you some time. If you're headed to the comment section right now, you're probably tempted to say one of the following things. What about 3 stars? Are you saying 3 stars never pan out? What about this guy in the NFL draft or that former 2-star? No, I'm not saying that at all. First off, according to our rating system. A 3-star player is a very good player. Somewhere along the lines that got misinterpreted. A 3-star player is a very good player. What we are talking about is not a case by case. Any overwhelming rule that you develop in life or in college football recruiting, you will always be able to cherry pick exceptions to those rules. I would recommend you don't look at this thing with a magnifying glass right there at ground level. I would suggest you zoom it out and you go 50,000 feet and you view it strictly in the aggregate. In the aggregate, this balances out. Star ratings win in the aggregate. You look at the NFL draft numbers and how overwhelmingly more favorable you have in terms of chances of being a first-round draft pick if you're a 5-star high school player, or being a draft pick if you're an All-American, if you're a 4-star or 5-star high school player. Point being, yes, there are exceptions. View it in the aggregate, and it really carries a lot of weight. You also may be saying, well, development's really what matters, not the star rating. No, both of them matter. Development only matters if you've got an edge in development and the talent is otherwise equal. Or maybe you're going against a more talented team, but they don't develop well and you do. But here's the problem. Remember the context. We're talking about trying to win a championship. When you're trying to win a championship, you're eventually going to run up on Clemson or Alabama or Ohio State. Those places are loaded with talent and they're A+ at developing it. So you have to be close to on par with them, talent-wise, to compete with them. Not make an 11 seed in a 12-team playoff. Win a championship. That's what we're talking about here. And so again, if you properly interpret recruiting rankings, then this makes sense. But as sure as I say that, I'll get in the comment section and I'll have some of the things that I just mentioned pop up. But I really think this is fun. If you want to find this, head over to 247sports.com. It's still there. If it's not on the front page, Google blue chip rating, and you'll find it very, very quickly.